At the start, one that jumped straight into my mind is, as I suppose, a leader is someone you follow, and that's important. I think that you make it as simple as possible, because what message they give you and how you feel about yourself is very important. So there are obviously books upon books written on the matter, but I like to try and keep it simple, and it's someone, whether you're a player that you want to follow other players, or if you're the boss man or a coach, you're the leader and you're their inspiration, and they need to follow you. So that, I think what's fascinating nowadays is that it's becoming such a more rounded approach, because scarily I'm coaching guys that are 25 years younger than me. So you can give out about them saying it's a different generation, but no, I have to change and I have to adapt, because I'm dealing with a different profile of person, different profile of player. So to give a little bit of context or background, I think, I played in one club, in Munster, and one country, obviously in Ireland, and then played on 3 different Lions tours. So you got to experience great leaders, great people, but quite similar. It was really when I went to the Crusaders in New Zealand, I think I was completely reshaped. My thinking was reshaped, because I was in the presence of a lot of big names, but big names don't necessarily equate to leaders. But what is, I suppose, very telling in that club was the fact that they create an environment where they really care about people, and it's not just words, it's the act. So in terms of from the top down, from Angus Gardner, who'd be I suppose the rugby manager, right down to the young academy players, they every day they reiterate, we're setting up people to succeed. We want a positive environment, and we want to see your best qualities every day. So there's different ways of doing that, and there's different ways of how leaders can create that. But it was fascinating to spend 2 years there to see how some of the greats of the game operate, and it isn't as complex as you may think it is. It was, some of the people are absolute huge fans of doing the simple things well, and that's what a lot of good leaders do as well. They do the simple things well over and over again.
Would it be fair to say that across the duration of your career, which has now spanned, a couple of decades really, or even a little bit more between playing and into the coaching stage, that the definition of a leader, and maybe how we perceive it from the outside to be, has changed? It sounds like it's this movable feast a little bit from the perspective that you're looking at it now. It's dependent on circumstances, it's dependent on personnel. Whereas it might be easy to reflect on a time when it was whoever hit the wall the hardest, or beat their chest the hardest, or spoke the loudest back in the day, if we call it that.
Well, exactly. Yeah, you're spot on, and that's the difference between real leaders and good players. Leaders are consistent in their behaviors, while I think even good and great players, they don't really know, because they probably have a little bit of a screw loose, where their next moment of genius is going to come from. But a lot of, I suppose, leaders are very consistent in their behaviors, because they believe in probably routine, process, detail, planning, and executing. But also, as you said, yes, we were built on the era of a lot of emotion and a lot of perhaps it'll be all right on the night kind of attitude, while nowadays the game has changed, and it is becoming a very, for how I see it, a collaborative approach between players and coaches, because it's far better from my point of view to include 37 brains than 3 or 4 coaching staff's brains. You'll get better ideas if you engage your people. So how you do that is that you got to make your people feel valued. You got to make them feel respected. You got to make sure that their voice can be heard. And that's about the environment you create. And that's what leaders or good people do, because I take it back to someone like Dennis Leamy, who I played with, who wouldn't be the biggest name outside of Ireland, but he'd be very popular in Ireland as a player. But Dennis might speak 3 times a year, but for me, he is a leader because he performed every week, and it depends how you see or how you appreciate leadership. That's where it becomes. It's a game. It's exactly like what your vision on coaching the game is. Rugby can be played in so many different ways, but it depends on your vision. It depends on how you want to sell it to your players.
Do get involved in the comment section below and join the debate. Rate, review, and subscribe. And we hope to hear from you soon. See you again soon here on Rugby's Greatest Podcast.